First session, just recap because there was a lot of chaos. Just to kind of recap, we went over the installation using the PIM, went over setting up your gateway with authorized.net, setting up the gateway in Chargent using the setup wizard, and then setting up Chargent Anywhere. What we're going to do is go into a little bit more advanced customization. And what I want to do is talk a little bit about some of the things that customers tend to customize in Salesforce, the most popular things that they do. We're going to talk a little bit about the advanced settings. If you remember when I was talking about electronic check and ACH, the advanced settings is where you're going to go to actually enable that. So you set it up in the gateway wizard when you're going through the steps, but then in order to actually get it visible, you need to go to the advanced settings tab. We're going to talk about the gateway settings, so we're going to actually go to the authorized.net gateway in Salesforce that you guys set up, and we're going to go through the customizations in there and show you how to edit. Chargent Anywhere, there's going to be several things that you can customize there for defaults. For instance, gateway. If you have multiple gateways and you have different groups that need to use, this group needs to use one gateway, this group needs to use this gateway, you can default it based on the page layout that you assign. We have a brand new feature coming out and we're kind of excited about it called automated collections. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And customizing email receipts. So a lot of people call us up there. They're like, how do we actually customize those email receipts that get sent from Salesforce to the customers? We can show you how to customize those. And then we're going to go into enabling field tracking, which allows you to track what fields get updated, when they're updated, by who they're updated by. And country mapping. Country mapping is a tool that a lot of people may not be familiar with, but a lot of times when you're sending the payment over to the gateway, the name of the country may be slightly different than what's in Salesforce, and what we do is that we have a tool that allows you to create a custom mapping for that, so that if you want to send US of A over instead of USA, you could do that and it'll go through and it'll process that transaction. So the two different tabs in Chargent settings that I really want to talk about is the Advanced Settings tab and the Troubleshooting tab. Advanced Settings tab, we're going to run through all the different features there. There's a lot in there for payment requests, for copying billing address, things like that, to setting up a time for your payment request to expire. Troubleshooting tools is really important because if you have customizations like workflow rules or processes and process builder, and you have a problem where there's an error and something isn't being saved right, or you can go to Troubleshooting Tools and there's a button in there that allows you to test the insertion of a transaction or a master record. And it'll tell you if there's an error and that transaction record can't be created, it'll tell you exactly like what workflow rule or process is actually causing that and getting in the way. So let's jump over and go through those real quick. And you guys can follow along if you want. We're going to go to the Chargent app again. And we're going to go under Chargent Setup here, Chargent Settings. And we're going to go under the Advanced Settings here. Some of the things to kind of look at here, if you want to copy the billing address automatically, say you have customizations in Chargent and the Chargent order needs to go to the payment gateway, and you want to automatically copy the billing address from the account record over to the Chargent order before it goes, you can actually enable that here. The chunk size limit here, the batch, that there, so if you have recurring billing set up and it's scheduled to run nightly in a batch, this tells you how many records are going to be in that batch that we send to the gateway. So if we have 100 records that need to be processed tonight for recurring billing, and we have this set to 10, it's going to do 10 batches of 10. You could set it lower or higher. This is going to be dependent on how many records you're actually sending. If you're not sending a lot and you're not doing a high volume, then you can raise that. It makes the batch process faster. If you have a lot of records that need to be processed, then you might want to go lower. You just don't want to have it at 0, and 100 is the max. Here's where you would automatically create the payment request record. So if you automated emails to go out and you want to include on there automatically a link to a payment request, you can click this and it automatically creates a payment request every time a Chargent order is made. And then here's where you want to enable that ACH, eCheck, electronic check, direct debit, whatever you want to call it. You're going to enable it here. So this is going to be where you go to allow it to show up on the recurring billing. For payment requests, you can have customized confirmation text and error texts. And if you want it to be set to expire, you don't want that payment request to last forever, you can go ahead and set the number of hours that you want it to expire. One thing I do want to kind of cover is the currency and what works as the default. There are several things that you set the currency. You can set the currency on the record that you're processing the transaction from. If you're using multiple currencies, then you can do it on the record. The record is going to be what indicates what it processes in. But let's say you don't have it set on the record itself. It's going to go ahead and it's going to default to the currency that you have set up in your gateway. So when we're going through the gateway setup, you choose the currencies that you accept, it's going to default to there. But if you don't have it on the record and you don't have it in the gateway record, then it's going to default to what you have set up in your advanced settings here. So the transaction status batch, what it does is certain gateways that we work with, not all of them, but we're trying to get most of them in there. It'll update, like if you do an electronic check and you want to know, it doesn't always settle right away. Sometimes in a couple of days, it might come back for insufficient funds or something like that. This here is a separate batch that gets set up that will run on a regular basis to check the status of the check. So when it comes back and it's settled and it's good, it'll update that field on the transaction record. So I'm going to run through the customizations of the gateway, what you can enable, what you can disable. Say you went through the setup and now you want to make changes to it. You don't want to. You want to show that authorize button, and you didn't click it when you were going through the setup, or you've changed the types of currency, or you want to add currencies. If you want to add, maybe you want to take away the option to allow for electronic check. We can go through those, and then the different buttons that can be shown. I'm going to run through really quickly. If you click on the app launcher on the top left, and we do a search for gateways, you can click on the gateway, and then we can click on authorized.net, which is the one we added from the first session. If you click edit, it's going to take you to a page that almost looks exactly like the one where you set up the gateway to begin with. The difference is on the very bottom there's an option for advanced settings. And in order to edit that gateway, we click on advanced settings, and it's going to allow us to update those. So again, some of the things you can see here. Active means that it's active. If you switch gateways and you want to deactivate it, you would just come here and uncheck it. Test endpoint, so whenever we're in Sandbox or we want to send to a test URL, you're going to have the test endpoint checked. In Sandbox, it automatically defaults to that, so this is only going to be in production or your dev org. Use tokenization, again, always recommended. And then you can also set what happens when a transaction is sent and how the sensitive credit card or check information is handled. Do you want it to never clear and never remove the credit card number and expiration date? Do you want it to only clear it when there's a successful charge? Do you want to clear it after all transactions? But we always recommend clearing it when a token is present. So the token comes back and it clears out any of the credit card details, so you're not storing it in Salesforce. So for payment requests, you have 3 different options. You have charging the full amount, so you send a payment request, the customer gets the link, and they process the payment. So you can either send it to charge the full amount, you could charge, or you can authorize the full amount, so when they fill it out, it just authorizes their credit card. It makes sure it's valid and holds those funds until the authorization wears off, and doesn't actually take the money from their credit card. But you can also authorize just the minimum amount that your gateway allows. Most of the time it's about $1. So what it does is it sends it to the gateway saying, just making sure that this is an active credit card, and we're going to authorize this for $1.
Do you want those all to be active?
It doesn't hurt to have them all active. Yeah. I guess the only time you would not want them to be active is if you just want your users to be able to just charge. If you wanted to remove the option for eCheck, ACH, you can remove that. And then here's where you can go, and if you didn't check that show authorized button, it's going to be right here. You can click on that and show the authorized button now. So the different buttons that are on the payment console. And we can go ahead and save that. And then we're good on the gateway settings. Everybody's good? So we're going to talk a little bit about customizing Chargent Anywhere. Is everybody ready for this? Okay, good. In order to customize, there's several things that you can customize with Chargent Anywhere. You can automatically have it populate a recurring charge, or the payment console can automatically be populated with the account, where you can select the contact record that you want to populate it with. What it does is it looks up the account, and you have to create a lookup to the account and the contact. For opportunities, we already have the lookup to the account, so we don't have to create that. Whatever's populated on that opportunity is going to show up in the payment console when we pull it up. But if you want to also populate a specific contact from there, you can do that as well. You can also set the default gateway. I mentioned that earlier. If you use multiple gateways, you could set up different page layouts to use different defaults. You can also show the add cache or add check button. We had talked about that a little bit earlier, and somebody had asked about that. We can remove those, and then we can change the name of the charge button as well. So if you don't want it to say charge, you want it to say press me, give me the money, let's take every dollar that we can. You can do that. So if we're in Salesforce here, and you guys, if you want to go through this too, what we want to do is get back to an opportunity record. So we're going to click on the app launcher in the top left. We'll search for opportunities. And let's get back to that opportunity record. If you don't see your opportunity listed, there's the drop down there.
We're using the same one that we used last.
Yep, we can go right to the same one you used last time. So once we're here, we can go under the little gear icon, and we're going to go back to the edit page. This is where we dragged the Chargent Anywhere component into the page. And when we click on the Chargent Anywhere component, you're going to see the different options here. So the gateway URL is going to be the URL that you can see. Let me just get there. When we go to our gateway record that we just looked at, and this part here you don't necessarily need to follow along, but I just want to show you where you get that gateway record ID. If we're in the gateway record here, it's going to be part of the URL on the top. So we can easily copy that over to the gateway here to list that as the default gateway. Let's go ahead and back up here for a moment. I'm going to go ahead and click the back button. If you guys want to click the back button also so that we're out of here. We're going to go back to setting this up. There's a few steps that we want to do in advance that I kind of jumped over that are kind of important, which is setting up those lookup fields and getting those API. So let's instead click on the setup. Let's go under the gear icon and choose Edit Object. And then we're going to go under Fields and Relationships. What we're going to do here is create three different fields. We're going to create a lookup to the contact record. We're going to create a custom currency. We're going to create a custom currency field, and then a custom field for recurring payments. Okay, so the lookup to the account already exists on the top there, so you should have account ID. Does everybody see that? So that's where we're going to actually use for the default for the account lookup. And we can do a new, we can copy that over here if we want. If we do over account ID. And we want to go ahead and click on new. Let's go ahead and create a lookup field to the contact. Yep, we can go ahead and click new. We're going to select lookup relationship and click next. And we're going to choose from the drop down, we're going to choose contact. We can go ahead and click next. And then we're going to just hit tab, which is going to name the field contact. And we're going to click next. It's going to ask us which profiles you want to assign that to. I wouldn't worry too much about that right now. We can go ahead and click next as well. And then which page layouts do you want to assign it to? Let's see.
Yeah, it's defaulted to clear the value down the bottom.
Oh.
Just curious what that was about.
So if you're updating records and there's records that may already have this populated, it's telling you what do you want it to do. Do you want it to always require the field to be populated? Do you want to clear the field value? So yeah, if you wanted to make that field required, you could. You can make it so that it does. These are just basically permissions for that and what the user with those permissions can do. And then we assign it to the page layouts. And we just click save. So now we have the contact field name here, contact ID. That's our lookup field. And that's going to be a field now on the opportunity record where you can select a specific contact for the opportunity. And you just want to copy that over into a notepad or something like that. Okay, so the other two that we want to go over real quick are currency fields for the initial charge and then the recurring charge. So if you have a certain situation where you always want to, you have a custom field on the opportunity for the initial amount, and you want it to automatically populate it into the payment console, we're going to set that up too. So if we do new and we choose currency, yeah, we're going to do a brand new custom currency field for the initial payment and the recurring charge. So we're going to choose currency for this one. And it's going to be pretty similar. We're going to just do initial payment here, or initial charge. We can click next and just select next all the way through. And then we're just going to copy those fields also, the field names also. So we can do initial charge here. And then the recurring charge there. And now we're actually going to be ready to go back to our opportunity and customize that Chargent Anywhere. So if we go back to the opportunity, and now we can click on the gear icon and go to edit page. Okay, we're going to go ahead and tap on the Chargent Anywhere option. We talked a little bit about the gateway ID already, but this is where we're going to do the default charge amount. So we're going to go back to our where we actually copied that, and the initial charge is what we're going to go ahead and put in there. And then just below, we're going to do the same thing for the recurring amount. And we're going to paste in there the field names that we copied originally. And then here is where you can actually remove the buttons for add cash or add check. And then we have the billing account and the billing contact looked up, so we can go ahead and copy those over as well. And then finally at the very bottom, you can change the charge button. We're going to go ahead and just click the save button since we already had that activated from the first session. And then we can just go back to the opportunity record. So let's just run through the payment console again to kind of show you guys what's being populated. If we notice on the record first, we have those fields that we just added. Should be on here. Let's see, am I under the detail? We have the contact here. We already have the opportunity here, but let's just go ahead and populate any account on here. I'm going to go ahead and populate Brainiac's broomsticks. If you want to populate the contact record too, you can do that. But let's go ahead and just stick to the account first. There's also the option for the initial charge here, so we can enter in an amount there, and we can enter in an amount for the recurring charge as well. And then just save that. So now when we click on the payment console, you're going to notice something. Let's see here. So the one thing you can notice here is that the amount is now being populated from the record. And if you go under recurring, it's also going to have the populated amount as well. Okay, so automated collections. This is coming out in the next few weeks. We're kind of excited. We've had several people who've created their own versions of this. We kind of did ourselves. But what this does is it's going to help you collect money from failed transactions, from declined transactions. So if you have recurring billing set up, as you know, sometimes the recurring billing will fail. One of those transactions is declined insufficient funds, whatever the reasons, and you're constantly trying to collect that money. With the automated collections, you can set a failed schedule to send emails on a frequency automatically based on that automated collections. So essentially I'm going to go through how to enable that, how to set it up. But if you want a more in-depth, I would just say this afternoon, Don is going to be giving a pretty good presentation on this. Hang around. So enabling it is going to be in, and this is not going to be anything that's in your developer org, just putting that out front. But you're going to be able to choose a template, choose how many times it retries, and what it's going to do is it's automatically going to create an email that goes to the contact, and it has a link to a payment request saying update your information, and it's just going to be automated. Your payment status on the Chargent order changes to automated collections, so it follows through that cycle. And if they do make the payment, it turns off the automated collection, sets it back to recurring, so you don't have to manually do that anymore. And it'll just continue as usual. So I talked a little bit about this. It automatically shifts to automated collections. That wasn't an option before. Whenever something failed, it would change to error, and you'd have to manually change it back to recurring. You can also set the expiration of how long, it's in hours, how long the automated collections continue and how long they last. So it's pretty easy to enable this. When you go into Salesforce, you can just go to the Advanced Settings tab, so click on the Chargent app, and we're going to go to the Chargent Settings. And then on the sub-tab here, you have now Chargent Automated Collections. You can remove as many as you want. This is going to be, this is coming out. This isn't something that you have in the org now?
No, I just saw you deleting stuff.
Oh, I was just going to start from the beginning just to kind of show you. You can look at the failed payment one. You can set it to do specific emails. You can go ahead and customize it or send no email. And then you can tell it how long you want it to send the email, whether it's 5 days. You should be able to. Let me see here for a minute. Let me see. I believe that's something that, yeah, you can, right here, you can go in here and you can do new email template here. Select the name, description, and you can pretty much modify it any way you want. Pay me, and then pay me now. A few exclamation points because it's serious. We really want that money. So yeah, you can create your emails this way or your templates this way, and when you can send it here, you can actually choose the new one you created. You could tell it to a specific day of the month that you want it to go out on. If you want it to go out on the 15th, you know people tend to get paid on the 15th, 30th, and you can go ahead and save it there. So it's a pretty cool new feature. That way, when again, when a transaction declines for any reason, you have this set up. It's automatically going to retry that. When they actually do pay it, it cancels out any future failed payment emails, and it sets it back to recurring. So the customer's good. You don't have to have any manual intervention. When a transaction fails, it generally will switch it to error. Right, that's the way it is now. What it'll do is instead switch it, and it'll send the automated emails that you set up here to try to reach the customer. Okay, so here actually, look, if you look here, it's going to say if you don't want to retry it, you can set it to don't retry or stop recurring, mark as unpaid. So you can actually have one of the steps here that actually stops the recurring from trying. So I guess it does retry it unless you have something here that says stop retrying it. Customizing email receipts. A lot of people ask, how to customize that, what you can put in there, what you can't, what kind of merge fields. So if you guys want to follow along, you're more than welcome to. But we're going to go ahead, and there's two different ways to get to the email templates, and they do use the classic email templates in Salesforce. You can either go through the workflow rules, find the workflow for customer receipt, and take that method. It'll take you into it'll tell you which email template is there. You can click on that and go into it and edit it. Otherwise, you can just do a search in Salesforce for classic email templates and go under the drop-down that says Chargent Email Templates and select the customer receipt email template there. The one thing to keep in mind is a lot of people, if they're sending an automated email from like a transaction record and there's fields that aren't populated yet because the information didn't get back from the gateway yet, in order to use a merge field on the transaction record, that information already has to be there. I know it seems like common sense, but a lot of times people just, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. And we just need to remember that if you need it to be merged on the email template, it's got to be there in the record. To quickly do this, just to run through it, we're going to go ahead and click on the gear icon, and we can click Setup. I'm going to type in here classic email template. All you have to do is type that. It should be able to come up there. We select that. And then if you don't see it, it's probably because of the drop down here, the folder that it's in. We create a folder for Chargent templates. And if you choose that, you're going to see the option here. If we go to customer receipt and click edit, it allows us to customize the email that goes to the customer for a receipt. So you can either remove some of this information, whether it's the merchant or the description, or if you have specific custom fields, you can go ahead and choose the object that you want to add from. If you want to go from the account object, you can do that, account fields. You could select the field that you want. And then it gives you the merge field to add in there. So you can just copy the value there for the merge, and you can paste it into the template. So now that field there would be added to the email template as you send it out. Once you're done adding whichever field you want, you can just easily click Save, and it's updated. Field mapping and country mapping. I want to kind of go over the field mapping a little bit and the country mapping. It's probably going to be really quick, so if you don't follow along, it's not really necessary, but I do want to show you where to go to find that. Field tracking history, again, just to kind of refresh you guys, it's going to be a history of telling you what fields were modified on an object or on a record, who it was modified by, when it was modified, and what the values were that were modified, or which fields. And that's going to be useful in tracking down, say something happens and all of a sudden a recurring payment stops and the next transaction date doesn't show correctly. If maybe something happened where somebody accidentally changed the payment start date, you'll be able to see a lot of that information. So in order to do that, you can go directly to the object under the fields and relationships, and you can click on field tracking, and that'll allow you to choose the different fields that you want to track in the history. Since we're already in the setup here, I'm just going to go ahead and click on setup here to get back to setup. I want to go to objects and fields, object manager, and we're just going to go to the Chargent order here. We're going to choose fields and relationships, and then on the top right you're going to see set history tracking. I've already enabled some of these for field tracking just to kind of give you an idea of what is really good to track. Billing address, if somebody updated the billing address on a record, that's useful to know who and when, because if they've updated the wrong information and suddenly a payment is declined, then you want to know like who changed it, why they changed it, when they changed it. The credit card information, whether it's the billing name or the billing address, the credit card information, and if it's the credit card number or expiration date, say maybe somebody updated the wrong expiration and now the card is failing. The card type, if they've changed it from a Visa to a MasterCard. Payment method, whether it was changed from credit card to ACH. And then status is the recurring status. And that's always a really good one to know, because if somebody turns around and changes it to a failed payment back to recurring and it fails again, you can see that that was the reason why it failed again, and like somebody tried to update that, it didn't work. And then always the charge amount field too. So the charge amount field, you can automatically enter in, or you can actually see who's updated the charge amount. Say a different amount was processed, sent to the gateway, and it appears for $30 in authorized.net, but yet your record in Salesforce says $10. It's a good idea to know if somebody updated that field, that's why it changed, that's why it's updated. And then always the payment frequency, if somebody changes it from recurring billing from monthly to annually, or from annually to quarterly, it's always good to know those things. Final thing before we open up for questions is going to be country mapping. Again, just to kind of refresh, country mapping is if you have a different name for a country where, like, instead of United States, you want to say United States of America, instead of USA, US of A, or something like that. You could set it to send the correct ISO code. So for example, in this slide here, you could see that the ISO code is 840. The Alpha 2 ISO code is US. Those are what's going to actually tell you what routes it to the gateway. If this number is wrong, then it's not going to go through successfully. If you get an error for the country and you realize that it's a country name that should be in there that isn't, you can add it this way. Just to kind of show you how to get there, we're going to go under Setup real quick. We're going to go under Custom Code. There's Custom Settings. And then if you look there, you'll see the country mapping, and you can manage it there. So here we have United States of America, but if we wanted to add US of A in there, we can click New. US of A. We know that the ISO 2, the Alpha 2 code is US, and the numeric ISO code is 840. So now if we submit a transaction record with US of A as the country, it's going to be sure to go to the right, it's going to process correctly using the right ISO codes. Awesome, I think we're pretty good here.
Hey, thank you for watching our video. And while you're here, please subscribe to our channel. Click that notification bell for immediate updates. And if you'd like to talk payments, please get in touch. We're always here to help.